Are you looking for an open-minded perspective? Different view or a different take? Well, this is Lost in the Groove, Society and Culture podcast, donor culture, and deep dive. See, here, we're all about the experience, all about the journey, and getting into the groove. All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Lost in the Groove. Today, we have an interview with Kate. Kate is a person that I was really fascinated by her story, and we're going to be getting into that and learning a lot more today. So, you want to introduce yourself to our audience, who you are? Who is Kate?
Dude, boy, there's a lot of levels to that one. There's a lot, that particular onion has a lot of levels. My name's Kate. My podcast is called Ignorance Was Bliss. Right. I've been doing the thing for 5.5 years now. And so when it started, it was very true crime. I'm a forensic psychologist by trade, and I kept hearing people asking these questions on the shows, like, why did someone not get found not guilty by reason of insanity, or what is schizophrenia, things like that. And
also the insanity of the New York justice system. But anyway.
I mean, for real. But so I started thinking, I'll do 10 or 20 shows. I'll explain what forensic psychology is, and then I'll find a new hobby. And here we are. 5.5 years and almost 500 episodes later. So apparently I got stuck here. After a while, I pulled the lens back. I decided I didn't want to stay in the true crime zone because it felt a lot like doing work without getting paid for it, which,
right.
And so now I just talk to anybody. I call myself a story collector. And so I've talked to podcasters and priests and sex workers and convicted murderers and parents and, just everybody's got a story to tell, and you can decide which of those are the scariest.
The thing that I love the most when it comes to true crime is the fact that there is a very Hollywood variation, and then there's a very realistic variation. I think what happens is people watch, NCIS, or they watch this TV show, and it's all, dramatic music, and the cop cars coming there, and they got all the tape. You're getting that perspective. And then when you look at actual true crime, like a scenario where someone goes into a school and kills somebody, or students, or whatever the case, or somebody murders their children, which is a horrible, horrible scenario that nobody wants to be in. You see this whole different side. You know what I'm saying? And then, I love where you come in, like a forensic psychologist can explain what exactly happened from A to Z.
Well, I'm not actually allowed to watch shows like NCIS or Bones or...
Oh, really?
No, and my family won't let me anymore because I shout and scream and swear a lot at the TV because there's so much of that's not how it happened, and it just makes me because there are so many little details that take me completely out of the story.
Right.
And it's simple things like a lot of times they pull out a cell phone when they're in the prison because they're going to call their boss. And I'm like, the only people who have cell phones in prison are the inmates and their contraband. Like, as staff, you're not allowed to have a cell phone in prison. You had to check it and then go through the metal detector. So as you see, I get wound up. And so that's kind of
totally see that.
Where my show started. But then, I do have a hard time with the part of the true crime genre of drinking and giggling, which is a lot of podcasts.
Right.
And they go real light on research, and that's fine. I don't want to censor anybody else, but it's not for me. And so I decided, I'm just going to talk to anybody. And I start every interview and recording on my show with a blank page in front of me.
Right.
And we just see what happens.
It's kind of like what I do here. And I'll be honest, I got the inspiration from the JRE podcast. And I honestly was looking at that and I'm like, how could I make this better for me personally? How can I take this type of dynamic and make it work for me? And you realize, I think now more than ever, The hardest thing about doing podcasting is doing what the both of us are doing. It's like, oh, it's easy. Yeah, you can have a conversation with me. No, it's not. You got to be able to like stay in focus, be able to listen to what the person's telling you, like be able to implement that and add and engage and be a part of that, you know?
Absolutely. Mic etiquette is a skill.
Yes, it
And,
is.
both how to speak into it and how not to, and how to not talk over the other person.
Right.
Editing is a skill. Publishing, promotion. There's so much that goes into podcasting. And I totally understand why a lot of people do 5 episodes and fade out. I'm like, you know what? I don't blame you.
It's hard.
But it's
Someone
also the
said it's easy.
best. It's the best. It's the
It
best
is.
hobby I've had. I'm on permanent disability now because I broke my back. Don't do that, by the way, terrible idea.
I
But,
I I just had a knee injury. I had a
yeah,
knee injury. I
don't do
twisted my knee while
terrible.
roller skating, and I can walk now, but here's the crazy thing. I have pain. Every time I walk, I have pain because I had a bone contusion.
Mhm.
And I was hearing, and I want to hear you talk more about this with, your injury that you had. You don't realize what day pain is. And again, I can't even imagine what you went through. But now I'm like, oh my God, so many people go through things like this, even worse.
For real. And you can immediately tell who has been through some major medical thing and who hasn't by how
Right.
competitive they get. Because people who are basically healthy are like, "Oh, yeah, no, I would love to be on disability permanently. That'd be great." And I'm like, "No, you know what? Actually, it sucks. It sucks and I miss it so much. I would go back to work in a heartbeat." But,
Right.
it is what it is. So I broke my back in 2014. I can still walk, but it is very painful and I'm limited in that. And I spent so I'm a big believer in if you're gonna do something, like, do it really well. So I spent
Right.
about 4 years moping, hardcore, heavy moping and pouting and feeling sorry for myself. And then I got tired of myself, and so I decided I need a hobby. I need a hobby so I got 4 kids. I've been married for 1,000 years, and at the time, my father had just moved in with us, and so it's like, I need a hobby that none of them can interrupt. I need a hobby that requires silence, and that was,
Love that.
like, really sort of the base of it,
Right.
and, I thought, "Couple episodes, and then we'll be done, and no big." And like I said, I got bit by the bug, and here we are. And the beauty of podcasting is that you're allowed to change your focus, to pivot a little, to change your
Yeah.
genre. And so that's what I did when I got tired of being all true crime. I still do true crime episodes, and sometime relatively soon I have an episode coming out. I got a buddy, and I think that's the right word for it, who calls me from his contraband cell phone inside a maximum security prison in Mississippi.
Wow.
And so he's been on my show twice. He's gonna call back again sometime. It's just I kind of never know what's gonna happen, and I like that because otherwise my life gets kind of closed in, and instead I've made these connections all over the world.
I
So
love
it's the
that.
best.
I love that dynamic, by the way, like how you're able to connect with this person that is in prison and have a conversation with. Because, okay, here's the deal. We here in the United States, we've got social media and we see all of these people posting things daily, right? They were in prison or they're in prison, right? And it's the gangster life and all that. But what I said earlier, I said how you have Hollywood that creates true crime in one version and the actual reality. When you get to see the actual reality, when you actually get to see those shorts and clips of people that experience it or are part of it, I don't know what it is. You're like, I'm going to stay here for a little bit. I want to hear what this person has to say.
It's wild, and the assumptions that people make about what crime is, what crimes are more or less likely to happen to them or around them, what inmates are like. Are they people or not? Like, people literally like lock them up, throw away the key. Well, you know what? First of all, they're still human. And secondly, they're probably going to be released eventually. So maybe let's figure out how to work with them.
That's a big problem too, and how I was listening to Jelly Roll. He's a comedy and rapper, uh, country country rapper. I'm sorry, and he was saying on how like in Tennessee they still have this law for juvenile delinquents, where their crimes are kept for the rest of their life. So they spend the rest of their lives with these sentences, and they can never get them removed. And a big reality for people that do these thefts, and again, there are crimes, but it's like you're punishing a person until they're put into the ground or when they die.
I mean, the worst thing to me about it is once you have a record, now for the rest of your life, you will be known for the worst thing you ever did. And that just removes such a big layer of humanity from who you are. And, a lot of us get away with equal or worse things. We just don't get caught. Because the vast majority of people that are in prisons for low-grade drug offenses or for driving offenses, or the concept of a sex offense, we don't really understand what that means because people assume sex offense equals horrible, terrible rapist, when the reality is there's a whole lot of sex laws, and I guarantee that if you know someone who has been sexually active, they've probably broken laws. That if they got caught in the moment, they could be arrested, spend time, and placed on a sex offender registry, which is, to get technical, bullshit. So,
Yeah.
you know, knowing more about that I mean, I'm not making it up when I say that in the US, the single biggest provider of mental health services is the US prison system. So maybe we want to learn more about this instead of just locking people up and throwing away the key.
It's a different side of the wall.
Yeah.
You're facing a different cusp, a different place, because as a person, and I've had the experience of being around people that were hookers, strippers. the, I was able to see that these are people that this is what they know. This is how they're, as a single mom, they're able to take care of their kid and make a living. And you may see it as disgusting and wrong, but this is what this mom is trying to do to survive. Or
It's
this,
her body.
it's her body, it's her choice.
Preach.
Girl, please. I just wonder if there ever really will be a change. I mean, I don't know.
Eventually, the pendulum either is going to swing in the direction of easing up and having more progressive, humanistic based laws, or it's going to swing the other way and we're going to blow ourselves up because,
Nuclear winter.
yeah, in some form, like, because there's just no the level of conflict that we live in every day right now, where there are
Right?
states where women can't get health care, where you can't, you know, people people who dress in drag are considered more dangerous than preachers. And I mean, go ahead and do the Google research on who actually offends sexually against children. I tell you what, it's not drag queens. And it's just we're in a world where everything is upside down right now, and it can't sustain. Like, something's gonna give.
Well, there's a pushed message that's being put out. And as a person that I am a part of the LGBTQ plus community, I I just like, why can't I just be myself, and that's that. End of story. I don't need labels. I don't need pronouns. I don't need none of this crap. I just need to be myself. And I just need to be able to experience things for what they are, not what they aren't. That's
Well,
it.
it's not up to me to impose my values on anybody else.
Anybody.
Like,
No,
if
exactly.
if somebody, like, as long as we're meeting basic rules of consent, and clear communication and boundaries, go for it. Like, knock yourselves out.
I know. And it's so strange because we I don't know. I won't say I'll say from my own personal experience, when you look at the more kinky, more sexual side of things, there there are people that are a part of it that are just artists. They're really good artists. They're really great dancers. They're really great singers. They're
I
really great
mean,
performers. Like,
let's
these are
be
talented people.
well, and let's be clear that people who are involved in the BDSM
Yeah.
scene, for instance, bondage, sadomasochism, that scene for the more innocent of your listeners, they are better at communication and consent and self-care and aftercare than any of your average, middle-aged white dude frat guy.
It's true. It's really true. Oh god. It just reminds me because it's when you take another group. I remember when I went to my very first metal concert. Okay, this was industrial metal. All right, it was outdoors. And everybody was like with their ripped jackets, and people had like black eyes, and it was just like it was crazy. And I sat down, and the guy right next to me looked at me, and he poked me. He's like, "Hey, bro, you want a beer?" And I was like, "Cool, sure." And it was the most amazing experience. They were the most loving, wonderful people, and I had the greatest time. Again, shift perspective. You got to be able to look at both sides of the wall. Just because you're seeing one image doesn't mean that's what it is on the other side.
I mean, I'm in a Godsmack video, so I hear you.
Oh my god, are you serious?
I am.
Get the fuck out of here. That is so awesome. Shit, I'd love to see that.
It's real brief. I know where it is. It's there's a video. Their video for whatever is filmed at an outdoor festival, which I was at, and I was friends with the band because their bassist played hockey with an ex of mine, and so
Mm,
I used to go hang out with them
that's really
after the
cool.
show. It was I frankly think that they owe me residuals because uh,
100%.
Robbie, the bassist, we were sitting at an after party one night, and he's like, I was 21, 22, and so of course I knew everything, and as one does, and he's like, I think I'm gonna have to leave the band because they were just about to hit. This was 1998, 99 in there somewhere, and so they hadn't quite hit. They hadn't. This was before the Ozfest. They were big in New
Wait a minute.
England.
Was it this before they released their first album, or this was after?
No, this was after what the first album came out, but it was
Oh,
before they
okay.
started really like, this was when they were still performing at, like, dive bars in, Providence, Rhode Island, where there were no doors on the bathroom stalls,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it was
There's
gnarly,
pictures of
man,
that.
and, oh, no, oh, god, and I hope
It's
there's not pictures
crazy.
of that, but, but he was like, "I get stage fright." He's like, "I get wicked stage fright really bad, and I can't take meds for it because it throws me off my rhythm, and
It's like, bro, just smoke
when you're
some
on the
weed,
break."
man. Just grab
Well,
a
but
joint.
any med can mess up your
Right, of
rhythm,
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he's like, "So I can't take, chemical enhancement of any sort for it."
Right.
And so he's just like, "The band's about to go on their first tour, and I don't know what to do." And I was like, "Buddy, go you can go to therapy for, like, literally 6 weeks or less." Like, there are relaxation techniques that can be specifically attuned for stage fright and anxiety and that kind of thing, and it'll bring you down just enough to go play. Because he's like, "Once I'm on the stage, I'm fine. It's the half an hour leading up." And so I'm like, "That's what it's for." And he had the sort of assumption that therapy means, like, laying on a couch for 2 years talking to somebody about your sex life, and I'm like, "No, they don't
Right.
care. Like, trust me, we don't wanna know about your sex life, honestly, unless that's what we're here to do." So, like, yeah, that's
I mean, there were some people like John Lennon that just wanted everyone to know his sex life with
well, that's a
Yoko.
different scene, but I'm talking about the therapist. The therapists, we don't need to, everybody assumes Freud, right? And as far as
Right.
Freud was concerned, everybody's a sex freak, like, all the time, and I'm thinking, yeah, the pot called. And,
They
you
want
know
their bell back.
yeah, for real. And he's like, I assume he went because right after that they kind of blew up, and now if I were to call them, they would not take my call. I am certain because it's been 25 years, and I'm old and boring by now. But once upon a time, I was that girl. So
That girl.
yeah.
Really old TV show, but it's actually kind of good. Uh, it's so it's just so strange because when you are, I hate to say like personal experience, but it's true. If you don't experience the culture, you can't really understand it from a screen. That's like the biggest problem with virtual is, yeah, virtual is great. You can experience things, but you can't experience it physically. You can't experience what the guitar actually sounds like. You can't actually experience like the fans like roaring at the, just the sound that's coming from the stage.
It's the crowd experience. I'm going to
Oh
Boston Calling soon next weekend, and
wow.
I kind of technically shouldn't because I'm having major health issues, and they've knocked me flat quite a bit lately. I'm on a permanent IV right now because I'm not able to keep food down, so I literally am hooked up to an IV
Oh
right now.
wow.
But I'm going because I need to
Damn girl, you
feel
fierce.
yeah,
Pshee.
wicked. I need to feel normal, and I need to do something that is fun, and I can't
Right.
travel, and there's a lot of physical stuff I can't do right now, but I can go and listen to live music, and I've seen, you know, everything from like Godsmack to Fish to Rob Zombie to Garth
Tool?
Brooks, and
Have you
just
seen Tool?
no, unfortunately, they didn't go through the part of New York where I lived when they were touring,
Damn.
and so
Damn.
yeah, no, and rumor has it they're coming back through on a tour later this year, so
Girl, it's
maybe.
been how many years has it been? They haven't been on
It's
tour.
been it's been a hot minute, but it's it's rumor, but I mean, but the thing is, the answer is I'll go see anybody. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have
You're
to
not
be
far
my
from
favorite
Boston.
band. No, 10 miles. Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
not bad. Oh, okay.
so like I don't care about favorite band. I almost don't they say don't meet your heroes like
Right.
because like when
Mine
I
are
was
all
in
dead, by the
college,
way.
I went to college in the 90s in upstate New York, and
Mhm.
this was right when grunge and alternative hit,
Right.
and one of the bands that I listened on CD or possibly cassette tape in my car because that used to be it. That used to be how you obtained music in one's vehicle. Kids look it up because I just can't. But one of the bands I listened to was Candlebox, which they were okay. Like they weren't like a favorite, but they were okay. And then I saw them live and I was like, "Oh, you're a studio band. Oh no." And so every time I've heard them since then, it's like I can still like some of the songs, but man, I picture that concert and I'm like, "Oh, well." But
It's a different.
it's not a regret. You learn. You learn.
There's a band. They're actually kind of famous. It's called Molchat Doma. They're all over like social media. Like people put their clips. They're a Belarusian band, a Soviet Belarusian band. So they play like post-Soviet punk, and oh my god, they come up on the stage and they look like they came out of the Gestapo. Like
Mm.
straight out. Like the guy has like deep sax, like a long beard, like long hair, and he's just like gets up to the mic, and this dark Russian voice just comes out. And to be honest, my experience with them, like just with the shorts and then in person, was totally different. I was like, okay, now I totally know why they're famous. It's because of their live concerts.
I like I said, I will happily go see I mean, almost anybody live. There are a few artists that I wouldn't go see for, protest type reasons, but,
Right.
I don't wanna support certain trying to avoid pissing people off, but there are artists who don't deserve that slice of my ticket cost. Fine, fair. But otherwise, like I said, my the first show I ever went to see, I was in high school and my buddy was like, "Hey, I have a ticket to go see Fish and I can't go. Do you wanna go?" And I was like, "I don't even know who this is." Like, never heard of them at the time. And I was like, "'Kay, I'll go." And it was bizarre and it was fun and it was just that sort of eye-opening like, "Oh, okay." And you never know when the answer is gonna be, "Oh, that band broke up," or "Someone died," or whatever, and you're never gonna be able to see them again, and so I'm a big fan of, just just go, just even if you
Right.
don't like the music, and so we take our kids once a year to go see something, and it's sort of it depends on the year. We've taken them to see, like, Def Leppard and Air Supply, and we've
Oh,
taken them to see,
wow.
like, Florence and the Machine, so it sort
Oh
of
my
depends
god.
on,
That's great.
depends on the year.
Good combo.
It would be
Really
a
good
weird
combo.
show if they were all together, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that really would be a strange show. You might as well call it Alice and Into the Wonderland. Uh, but getting into, like, you've mentioned that you have a family and you have kids. What is, like, you seem like you're really into music, and you seem like a really cool person. Like, or is your family also into, like, the same type of music, the same type of things that you are? Like, what is your family dynamic is like?
I mean, my husband is, he's a math teacher,
Oh, okay. Interesting.
and he's big into prog rock and metal. That's his deal.
Wow, okay.
Um, my oldest and my oldest is 23 and my second is 18, and they are both into now they're developing their own sort of sounds, like my oldest is, a lot of sort of I don't know the right word for it, like indie folk rock sort of in
Okay,
there,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
singer-songwriter kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
idea,
Right.
and then my 18-year-old has a YouTube channel,
Oh,
and so
wow.
they're a gamer, and so a lot of the music they listen to is sort of the stuff that you can have on the background while they're playing, so that you can still hear it when you shoot people, I guess.
I
And
love that.
and, and my younger 2 are 13 and 10, and they are figuring it out still. I started with my kids from day 1 of just explaining to them, like, "So sorry, mom's car won't play kid music. You have to figure out mom music that you like."
I love
And
that.
so that's where we're at, and so, we sorta my eldest graduated with an art degree, so they don't work as an artist, obviously, because that's not gonna happen. Um, each of them find their place, though, and I think that's my job as a parent is to make myself obsolete, is to kind of figure out what they're into and kind of give them whatever they need
Right.
to pursue that, and then just get the hell out of the way.
You seem like a person that, and again, a lot of what develops us as a person comes from our traumas when we were children.
Oh, I have those. Mhm.
Yeah, like, and it's really interesting when you get to talk to somebody that has kids, and you've, again, I can't even imagine the hell and shit that you've had to go through, but the incredible strengths that you've taken to not only get through injuries, get through your career, get through a marriage, and get through raising an entire family. It's just, you've been able to figure all of this out for yourself.
I can play it on TV, yeah. I mean, it's never the social media put together version. When people ask me, "How you doing?" My immediate response is always like, "Do you want the social media version or do you want the real answer?" Because there are days where I have it all together, and then there are other days where I'm like, it's not just that I don't have ducks in a row, but
Mhm.
I have squirrels and they're at a rave. Like, that's where I'm at.
Well,
So,
better
yeah.
not give them Molly.
Well, it's too late. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever interacted with a squirrel directly, but they're messed up.
Pupils, pupils double dilate.
I've been bitten by a squirrel before. They're mean little shits.
Enough. I love how people that come from other states and they're like, "Oh my god, squirrels are adorable." I'm like, "Have you lived in New York? They are the devils. They will hunt you, honey. They will wait at your door. They'll wait at your door."
They're so much bigger than you think too. I also had one get in my car once,
Oh my
and so,
god.
like, it's big enough to, like, wrap all 4 legs around my steering wheel and look at me like, "Get in, fucker, we're going for a ride."
God. Fuck those goddamn squirrels.
Well,
But
and so the answer was, "Well, I guess I'm not going to work today because my car has
because
been taken
havoc by
hostage
a
by a
squirrel.
squirrel." And, what are you gonna do?
No, there's nothing you could do. That is their domain now until they decide to leave. There's nothing you're gonna do.
For real.
Yeah, great way to call out sick. But I mean, like you, yeah, that's my baby. Um, you mentioned that one of your kids is adopted.
Mhm.
Do you want to? I know you've talked about this before, but what I was curious about is like you had like also I saw like a social media post like with your child. There's a do you feel like you have a different connection? I mean, I'm always curious about parents and especially kids that have to go through a situation like that, and that experience.
I have a different connection with each of my kids.
Right.
They're just humans, they're just people. And so my little one, I effectively died in childbirth for my 3rd with my 13-year-old. It's a whole story, but I ended up in a coma for a week and a half and on life support and all this don't it's this whole thing. And I had incredibly huge surgical wounds and a lot of healing to do for like a solid year afterward. So we had to hire a nanny because I couldn't my older kids were 10 and 5 and then I had a newborn and I could handle that for brief periods of time, but I couldn't reliably stay awake and deal with that. And so we hired this nanny, good nanny, and then it turns out that she thought it would be a good idea to be a single mother. She thought wrong. She was in no way prepared for that. And so about 2 and change years after, like, I went back to work, we were able to sort of part ways at the same time that she got pregnant, and so I was like, "Okay, dodged a bullet." Apparently not. And so she called me, like, 2 years later. I had only seen, the Disney version, the social media version of how great everything was for them, and she called me in the middle of the night to be like, "I'm, living I've been cut off by my family. I'm living in one of those motels that rents by the hour or the month. I just lost my job. I'm I'm at a breaking point. Can you take the baby so that I can go to the hospital?" And, to me, the answer is of course. Like, if you
Right.
can help, then do. Like, that's the answer. But, you know, no shade on anybody who ever decides, like, "No, I can't." But in my case, I was like, "We can." We had physical space, and I thought, "Well, they can both stay with us for a couple of weeks till they get on their feet." And 4 months later, we ended up having to kick the mother, my former nanny, out for being terrible in many, many ways. She was not connected with her kid at all. The kid, it turns out, had been abused in pretty much every way a child can be abused. Um, and I mean, they had so many resources prepared. It turns out Child Protective Services was already involved in their case, which I didn't know until a CPS worker showed up on my doorstep to check on the baby while the mother was in the hospital. So that was a fun little surprise.
Surprise is like,
And
hello, it's not UPS.
no, it is not.
No.
And so, after 4 months, we had to sternly invite the mother not to live with us anymore. She tried to steal my kid's identity. Took half my wardrobe. She was engaging in sex work out of my house. It was just on and on and on. It was too much. And I was like, we can't do this. And I can't have my kids exposed to some of the decisions that you're making. So you got to go. You can leave Danielle, the little one, here, and we'll take care of her while you get on your feet, or you can take her with you, but you can't stay. And she decided she was going to leave, and she'd, you know, we would make up like a visitation schedule or whatever. She'd leave the baby with us though. And I was like, fine, that is fine. Just like, it was very like Dr. Seuss, like Marvin K. Mooney. Will you please go now? Like, I cannot anymore with
Leave.
you.
Just get out of
Just
my
out,
house.
out. And 2 weeks later, she called me and said, I'm never going to get better. You keep her. So, surprise, it's a girl. And so there we go, and it wasn't planned. And this was the only of our kids that was not like, I don't think you plan a child,
No.
it's not like a meeting, but still, like the other ones we were more ready.
That would be an
And
interesting conversation. Can you imagine you and your husband sitting down with the sperm and the egg, in a
yeah,
conference room,
yeah.
in Dunkin' Donuts,
I'm
you
I'm
pay
I'm
50.
I'm glad you all were here to join us today. Here's what's on the agenda for real. But
It's crazy.
adoption is so much more invasive in a
Right.
lot of ways. Like the number of like it's a stack of paperwork, and the number of people you have to just open your home to strangers at any time. And, like, I get it, it's all fair, but it's like, that I just made those other ones, like, not all by myself, but you know what I'm saying, like, my husband and I, all by ourselves, made those other ones with no oversight, and nobody checked on us. And then I was 22 years old when they handed me my first one, and they were like, "Here, take this home, keep it alive," and I was like, "What the hell do you mean about that? Like, do I not need a license?
Oh my God.
Something?"
A
Like,
certificate?
it's
Like a
oh,
stamp?
and so it's just wild how different the process is. And so the fact that she's adopted really doesn't mean anything
Right.
to us. My husband was adopted, and so, he understands the dynamics better. The fact that she was abused and traumatized, and, she carries an official diagnosis of PTSD as well as being autistic. Um Which I don't know. I don't believe in nature versus nurture, and so I don't know how much of that is because of genetics and how much is because of early environment. But this is a kid that struggles in a lot of ways, and
Right.
so you connect differently. You connect with each kid based on what they can and want to do at the time. And she has recently decided she wants to be a marine biologist, and so I'm like, "Okay, like, you do you, kiddo." And meanwhile, we watch Project Runway, and she and I went out and got piercings last weekend. Like, what are you gonna do?
It's wonderful. It's you being able to create a really really supportive environment.
Well, and
The
and honestly, people make a big deal. I've told the story before, and people are like, "Oh,
right.
you're so good to take her in. You're so good." And I'm like, "Okay, that's bullshit." Like,
Right.
it would have been bad if I had taken her in and we didn't want to. Right? So all we did was a thing that we discussed and we decided we wanted to do. The
Right.
bigger issue is I didn't know our family wasn't complete until she joined us, and then I was like, "Oh, here we are."
Right.
And so it's chaos. I mean, 4 kids ranging from 10 to 23, like, you never know, but,
Yeah,
like,
but honey,
I function in chaos
you
pretty
you
well.
you need the thing about peace. Peace needs chaos. Chaos needs peace.
Fair.
Love
Yes.
needs war. War needs love. And these sounds like fictional fairy tales, but honesty is this: life will throw curveballs at you in any shape or moment. The thing is how you're going to respond to it, whether it be wrong or right. It's your choice to decide on how you're going to respond to that curveball.
Right.
And what I feel like in regards to support is no parent is perfect. I don't believe that. I don't think no child is perfect. I don't think any situation is perfect. I think when you create an environment where you want to be a part of this, you want to be a part of this choice. If not, you wouldn't you wouldn't have it in the first place.
Well, I mean, now with the laws being what they are and retracting Roe v. Wade, there are a lot of people who are being forced into this choice that don't want it, and that's bullshit.
Right.
But that's a whole other, like, I
Whole
don't
other
know how
conversation.
I don't know
Yes.
how I ended up on this soapbox, but here we are. But
That's all right.
I mean, frankly, it would be bad, I believe, for a child's mental health to have a perfect mother. Like, they need to watch me screw up. They need to watch me fall down. They need to watch me get sick. And apparently they need to watch me get sick a lot because my health is a disaster. I'm going for full coverage on the medical bingo board, and I'm getting close, I'll tell you. And
Good for you, honey. You go for it.
uh-huh. Woo-hoo. And but they need to see that stuff because they need to see me get up again afterward. And they need to see that it's okay to be imperfect and that broken is like everybody's broken in their way and that's
Yeah.
fine.
My mom, my mom right now has been dealing with severe fibromyalgia, knee pain, back pain, horribly. And she fell quite a few times the past few years. And she had a problem with opiates for a period. And the thing for me is, I saw my mom going through all of her mental health struggles and her physical health. And my other siblings, a lot of them didn't, because this has been going on for the past 20 years when I was born. Because me and my brother were about 16 years apart. So I was born in the late 90s. I was born 99. I was born the last year of the 20th century. But now, like, I'm able to see my mom in a very different light. I got my mom introduced to cannabis so she can deal with her pain more better. And I'm able to look at her more than just my mom. Realize that this is a person that fucks up, makes mistakes, is imperfect. At the same time as the person that gave birth to me and raised me.
And and
I love that.
on the one hand, yes. On the other hand, I have zero contact with my mother now because there is such a thing. Like, I think people are prone to give family more strikes
Yeah.
in the baseball game of life, and that's fine. That's fair. Give them extra. I didn't cut my mother off until I was 40, so like she had a lot of strikes. She had a lot of hits at me. My mother is narcissistic and toxic. She's unhealthy, and I kept taking it when it was aimed at me. But then she started to aim her toxicity at my kids, and my answer was
Oh.
absolutely fucking not. Like, you can mess with me all you want, but you don't go after my kids.
No.
And so, she was given warnings. We literally gave her a script of like, these are the words that I need you to say. It
Wow.
wasn't about needing an apology so much as I need you to acknowledge that this thing that you did was inappropriate and that you won't do it again. And her answer was, well, I don't know what would happen next time. And I was like, okay, noted.
Right. Yeah,
Got it.
because the thing is, when you're dealing with somebody that's narcissistic, and again, narcissism is where the person only views themselves in me world.
Mhm.
It's me, 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 me all the time. So if you have your kids that are revolving around this, they can say things that to you may not seem traumatizing to a kid, but to a kid, it's very traumatizing. I can give an example if you want me to. Or you can give an example.
Up to you. Like, I got a lifetime's worth. So yeah.
Okay, I had, when I was a kid, I had a family member that walked up to me. I was maybe 12 years old. And he says, oh, it'll be great when you can be married just like I. Have yourself a gorgeous woman. And I was just like, get away from me. Get the fuck away from me. And I was 11 years old, not even.
The assumption, like my mother, I have a very clear memory of my mother walking me into my first day of kindergarten, and I believe that she thought of this as a pep talk.
Oh,
But
God.
she told me, here we go, you're starting at school and pay close attention. You got to learn how to be smart because you're never going to be pretty enough to get a husband. And I was like, boy, that's a lot to unpack. Thanks. I was just going to go play on the playground, but here we are. But that seed was planted, and that was
I mean, Tommy is definitely a good match, but Billy, I think is the one. Kate, I think it's Billy.
It's insane. It's insane. And so,
I love it.
it's the way we like I basically my husband's parents are fucked up in their own special ways. And so we literally had to sit down before we had kids or anything and
Right.
said, our parenting philosophy is largely going to be based on what would our parents do and then not do that.
Oh wow. Twist.
Yeah.
Twist and shout.
And our kids have never been arrested, and they seem happy, they seem functional, and they choose to hang out with us as they get older. And they choose to do so. I feel like, okay, we're not screwing everything up. Like I'm making mistakes with my kids, there's no question. I know when I'm doing it and I know when it's happened.
Right.
And then you either acknowledge it and pick it up, or you take the attitude of, I'm the parent, you must respect me. And I'm like, yeah, but see, the thing is, I'm the parent and I screwed up. It should be on me
Right.
to make it better.
Right. Exactly. And it's strange because I had my father passed away during the first wave of COVID. He was 63, and I was still trying to build my relationship with him. My father and I had a very on and off relationship. There was problems when I was a kid, and it left a very big gap for me. And it took me now almost 2 or 3 years to kind of come out of the fog, as they say, dazed and confused. Um, and I realized something that, like you brought up so beautifully, is what I look at my father now is I look at my father for inspiration. The ways that my father had a very hard time with communication, expressing himself. What the fuck am I doing right now?
Yeah.
That's the attitude that I feel needs to be towards trauma, not this whole like, it's okay, shh, you'll be all right. Like, you do that. No, bro. Look at what the problem is and just fix it. Take a
Well,
while.
or live with it.
Yeah,
Live
just
with
live with
we're
it.
all broken. I mean, I'm not gonna strip on camera because I'm trying not to do that to people.
That's
But
okay.
I collect tattoos. That's one of the things. I had like 16, and one of them is, so there's a form of Japanese art called
Mm-hmm.
kintsugi
Yes.
art.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so for listeners, if you have a ceramic plate or vase
Oh
or
my God,
whatever,
it's
and
beautiful.
you break it, they don't sweep it up and throw it away. They gather up the pieces and then they mix gold leaf into the glue and they piece it back together. And the gold leaf now accentuates
The
the
cracks.
lines, the cracks, and the point is to bring out the beauty in the broken pieces. And so one of my tattoos is a human heart with kintsugi lines.
Oh wow. Is it gold?
Yeah, well, the heart is in shades of gray, but the kintsugi lines are gold.
Beautiful. I love that. I have quite a few tattoos myself. And I take tattoos very seriously. The thing is, I was raised in a Jewish Orthodox home. So, tattoos were kind of like, forbidden. And as an adult, I still have this attitude of like, this is a vessel of God, even though I don't believe in that shit. And I'm very, each tattoo has to have a special meaning because it's fucking permanent. It's not coming off unless you pay $12,000 for a laser. But yeah.
I mean, the way I spent a long time with just one or two tattoos, feeling like I want to make sure I choose exactly what I want forever. And
Right.
then I realized, you know what? I experienced brain damage in the coma in 2010, and
Mm,
when I had my third, and when I came out of it, I'm much more impulsive and I'm much more emotional than I used to be.
okay.
And
Makes
part of
sense.
that is reflected in the tattoos, is that now when I travel, I get a tattoo as my souvenir, or when I have enough money, if I have something that means something to me. So like in early 2019, I traveled down to Florida with the younger two kids. We had taken the older two to Great Britain the year before. We
Oh
took
wow.
the
You
younger
you
ones to
do a lot of
Florida.
traveling, I noticed.
I would rather die broke, but with a full scrapbook, you know? And so we were down in Florida, and one of my closest friends is down there, and so she and I went and got matching tattoos. And so you're familiar with the semicolon
Of course.
tattoo?
Yeah.
Okay, so for those listening, semicolon, it's a symbol of, sort of suicide awareness and
Suicide
the idea,
prevention.
yeah, the idea that don't end your sentence. Don't put a period on it. Don't end your sentence. Now, just use a semicolon, take a pause, take a break, take a
And
breath,
rewrite.
and it'll get better. Like, or you'll get better, or maybe it won't, but keep trying, because the damage that it does, the psychic damage that it does to the people around you, is insane. And so I have a semicolon on my arm that my friend has matching, and they're neat because my oldest kid designed it, and so it's like a paint
Wow.
splash kind of background
Yeah, I
with
love here.
the
I don't know if you
semicolon
can
in.
see this, but let me get up. See?
Yeah,
See like that?
please tell me that's the name of your cat.
Yes. That
That's
is the name of my
amazing.
cat. She's named
Yeah,
after a candy bar because I was really, really stoned. And I was tired of people
as
throwing girl names at me for my cat. And I was like, fuck all of you. I am naming my cat Twix. And
so mine
those are beautiful.
is there. Okay,
Oh,
so
that's beautiful.
that's the semicolon. And so then so that I got that in March of 2019, and then
Okay.
in April 2019 my father died by suicide.
I
And so right below that I have a note that he wrote in. He liked to write little notes inside the front page of books when he'd give you. And so from the last book that he gave me, he wrote a note that just says, it says, "To Kate, just because, love, Dad." That's it. But I felt like there's something bigger that I could pull from
yeah,
it,
there
and so
is.
that's under that, and so that in his handwriting, that's on me as well. And so that's when I started, like, you know what, just get life is too short to not get the tattoo you want, and so, like, last weekend, my 10-year-old wanted to get her ears pierced, and she has wanted to for a little while, and my philosophy on that with kids is wait until they ask more than once, because I don't want them to do things totally impulsively. But if
Right.
they ask more than once, then they mean it, and it's her body, and so get earrings, no problem. And so I'm there, and literally as I'm walking out the door, my husband's like, "Are you gonna get something pierced too?" And I was like, "Well, I wasn't gonna,
You should.
but
You
now
should.
I'm gonna." So I got my nose pierced, and it's just
Look
like,
at you.
life is just too short to
Life is too
not,
short. It is.
you know?
I did
So
that. I did that too with a tattoo. I have a tattoo of a Volkswagen camper. It's up here.
ideal. Yep.
Because my dad, little short story. My dad in 1974, he drove out to Pennsylvania and he bought a 72 VW bus and was on sale. He paid $700 for it. $700.
Mhm.
Um, he was dating my mom at the time, and he decided to take her upstate New York in his new camper. And they went up state, and my dad forgot to fill it with oil, so the engine went on fire. And to make a long story short, my dad always had a love of just the outdoors and exploring and having a camper. So I got that tattoo, and my dad had the same thing. My dad had this thing where he used to write phone numbers and notes, everything, magazines, phone books, receipts, everywhere. And we managed to have a signature of his.
Mhm.
I wanted his handwriting.
Yep. I'm big on handwriting, so I'm not gonna show
Love
you
it.
because I'm not that flexible. But so
Yeah, that's
another
all
thing is,
right.
so I coded 3 times in 2010, so I died in childbirth, and that's just sort of how they told my husband to start planning the funeral. He was not a good scene, and, clearly, I didn't stay that way, like, I am no longer dead, but, you spend that first year home 24/7, nurses come to you. I
Right.
I I couldn't drive, I couldn't function in any sort of a way, and then slowly starting to feel like I was putting my life together. I went back to work. I was starting to feel human again, and I took that kid, the kid that I had in 2010, to I don't know, like an 18-month checkup or something. It was some sort of just random pediatrician thing,
Right.
and they were like, "Why was he in the NICU, the neonatal ICU?" And I was like, "Okay, so here, like, I died in childbirth, and they needed somewhere to keep him." And the doctor was like, "Oh, that was you?" And I was like, "I'm so fucking tired of being known as the girl who got sick. I'm so tired of that being my claim to fame, of people thinking of me as, the worst at the we were talking earlier about, like, prisoners, and we think about the worst thing they've ever done, and
Right.
in my case, I felt in my way, like, people think of me in reference to the worst I've ever felt in my life, like the sickest, the weakest, the most broken, the most miserable.
Right.
Fuck all of this. And so I handwrote a letter that I sent out to, like, 30 friends and family and loved ones and whatever, saying, "Handwrite me one word that makes you think of my recovery, not of my sickness. That makes you think of me still being alive, not of me dying." And so around my left leg, I have about 30 words that are each handwritten in the person's handwriting that they
Oh,
either sent me physically or they sent, digital, photos. And they're all, some of them are like what you would kind of think, hope and love and whatever, and one of them is the word pants, and there's a reason behind it, there's a whole story behind that one, and so it's just random, and the point was, like, this brings them with me, and it's a physical, tangible, visible reminder of I got better.
yeah. And I'll tell you this, like I didn't reach out to you because of the illness or sickness or that have you. The thing that we need to look past off from people is get to know the person. Get to know what makes them, them, what inspires them. What are they passionate about? What are they doing? What is the thing that gets them up every single morning, inspires them? It's so easy to look forward, but it's so hard to leap over. It's a choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's I could choose, I didn't have to start a podcast. I didn't have to start, like, when I went on disability, I could have been like, "This is it," and for a while I did, and
Right.
I felt like I was no longer playing a lead role in my own life, that I was just sort of a supporting character in my kids' lives and my husband's life, and that was it. And I was like, "No, but, like, I have things to say, and I'm still halfway smart, and I just I need some form of connection."
Right.
And so it started as an experiment,
Mhm.
and it's, the best thing. And I feel big on, I've this thing with that I have with the IV is a very new diagnosis. I just have been sick this year, and it's pretty serious. Like, it's May right now that we're recording, and I am not lying or exaggerating when I say the last time I ate solid food was in January.
Whoa.
So, like, that's a thing apparently people can do. So I have something called gastroparesis, which is where your stomach just stops stomaching.
Oh, wow.
And I don't it's a nightmare. And so I've gotten to know people, doing research online and getting to know other people who have it and that kind of thing. And just the other day, a woman in a Discord server that I'm in posted saying, How do how do you find how do you do this?" Like, not physically, how do you do this, but, like, how do you still find worth in life? because all of the gatherings that everybody has involve food and or out hiking somewhere or physical things that I can't do. Like, how do you find meaning in life? And my answer was like, I don't have any answer. I don't know how you do. I know how I did. And I
Right.
got lucky. I got really lucky because I already had one stationary hobby. I'm a knitter. And
I crochet.
yeah, there you go. And so I already had one thing. And then the podcasting is another
Right.
sort of sedentary hobby that I can do. And I lucked out that I had those to lean on, and when I'm done knitting, I have a tangible proof of how I spent my time, and when I am done podcasting, I have auditory proof of how I spent some time in a connection that I made with a person, and that moment matters. And maybe it's just of the moment. Like we're pushing 500 episodes. There's a lot of people that I'm never going to talk to again, and that's fine. No big. But on the flip side, I've made some of the closest friends of my life through podcasting, and there are people who still will text me at 3 a.m. I see that you're online. What are you doing? What's up?
I
And
sometimes will do that. I've had guests on this podcast, just like shout outs like Mohammed Naki, Cosmic Hippie, Juju Andon, Trippy Dubs. I've had these people that have been on, and I love to see their work. I love to, reach out and comment when I can. The thing about us humans is we are at a new dawn, a new age of Aquarius, as they say. And this age is about support and connection, is being able to realize that we need to be genuine and unique. We need to be able to have our own opinions for our own fucking bodies and our own selves. Plain and simple.
agreed.
Kate, I have to say, this has absolutely been amazing. You're an incredible person. I don't give a fuck that, half-brained shit. Who cares? You're a great person to talk to. And I feel like I actually learned a lot of shit today that I didn't even know. So thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
Oh, where can these wonderful people find you?
I mean, I am online way too much. So I'm at IWB Podcast, Ignorance Was Bliss, IWB Podcast on all of the social medias, and IWBpodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
And, my show is not meant to be binged. When I hear people say, like, oh, I binged every episode of your show, I'm like, oh my God, how tired of me are you? Like, yeah, I wouldn't listen to me that much, my God. But
totally get it.
But it's meant to be dip in and dip out based on what you're interested in. If I'm, I read the description or listen to the first 2 minutes, and if it's something you're into, cool. If not, I'm not going to know.
No.
You know what I mean? So just sort of...
Like the trolls online will know, but nobody else will know.
I couldn't care less about the trolls online. I stopped reading my reviews 8 years ago.
I feel you on that. It's just we gotta just keep on going. Listen, if you wanna be somebody, just don't care about opinions.
You cannot.
Just do it. Just do it.
All I have control over is what I put out into the world.
Right.
I have no control over how it's received.
Exactly. So, you heard where you can find Kate and check out her incredible podcast. And you should like and subscribe if you want to check out more of Lost in the Groove. You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Lost in the Groove Pod. So with that, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.